My legal name is Gloria Lee Martin Holler, my married name, but I'm a ground horse. It's my maiden name.
Okay.
Grauenhorst.
Oh.
My parents, grandparents came from Germany, settled in Nebraska, and my father was the only son of 4 sisters, the youngest. He was a musician, and because he was a musician, I guess they didn't think he was right for the world, so he left Lincoln with my mother, who was a pianist, Ruth Danskoy, and they came to San Francisco. And I was probably just a few months old at the time. We came on the train, I remember, and when we got off the train in San Francisco, I didn't like that man who was my father. I was scared of him because I hadn't seen him for a while.
What year was this?
I was born in 1927, May the 31st.
Okay.
And so I probably was about 6 to 8 months, or maybe a little older. I really don't remember, of course, naturally, and I don't remember any of the circumstances except that my mother and my dad had a wonderful friends from Lincoln, Nebraska, Maureen and Ducky Drake.
Wow.
And I remember them as kind of aunts and uncles, but they really weren't. And so they kind of settled in San Francisco with my mother, and they had a lot of fun together. And my dad started with, he didn't have a job, I'll tell you that to start with, but he finally was able, I think he probably, to be honest with you, and I'm going to say these things, I hope they go over right, in a house of ill repute. And that's where he worked for a while, because they always had them on the waterfront in San Francisco, these homes. As a matter of fact, I have seen a couple of lovely ones in Sutter Street, where he worked at National, it was National Broadcasting Company on Sutter Street in San Francisco. And finally, I guess he got a job. He was a guitarist, banjo player, and the steel guitar. And my mother played the piano.
Wow.
But she wanted only to have a family and stay at home and take care of things. But interestingly enough, I became an adult child in many ways, because we lived in Nob Hill, and she would go from place to place and rent a new apartment. They were all furnished in those days. And so we didn't have furniture, but we had an old car, I guess they called it the T, whatever it was. And she had to learn to drive those hills. Can you imagine?
Wow,
from coming from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, where it's flat.
Yes. And she did so well, and I was so proud of her she drove for many years. Wonderful woman, Ruth Lavone Vanskoy. My grandparents on her side were a Wright. My grandmother was a Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, and married a Vanskoy. That's Pennsylvania Dutch on that side. And my mother had a brother who was not too well, and he passed away later on in life. He never had children or anything. So I was the only grandchild until my sister Joan came when I was 7 years old in San Francisco. We lived in the Marina District, which I loved, and I got a baby sister, and it was wonderful having a sister. I can remember some of the families, even the Argento family, Italian families, that I would stop by and see the children, and I went to school together, of course. So I had a lot of interesting people that I got to know, and I've always been very friendly and open about things. So Mother said if I didn't get home, she knew I'd stopped at somebody's house.
To come say hi and visit.
And we lived there for a long time, and I was a pretty good child. Mother said I was not a child of a problem. But because of my dad's work at night, I became Mother's companion in many ways. And we did a lot of doing you have to know San Francisco to know how wonderful it is. I just love that city. And
Yeah.
we'd go to Chinatown and we'd do this and we did it. And my poor grandmother in Lincoln, Nebraska lost her mind because my mother would write and tell her, oh, you're just going to have a terrible time. These people, they didn't know about California, you know. They thought we were all going to be taken somewhere.
Yeah. She just knew what she heard on the radio.
Well, yes, of course. And even the radio wasn't really good, was it then?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
In the 30s?
Yeah, I can imagine.
This was in, you know, I was a little girl. And we didn't have my sister. And finally, my dad got a fairly decent job with Meredith Willson's orchestra in San Francisco. He was a very interesting conductor. And had, and my dad had finally a job, and then he went on to make his own thing, and he started a little group of his own.
Wow.
It was a group. I was trying to think of the other guy. He played the bass, and then Dad he could play the guitar and the band better than anybody in the world. He was a beautiful guitarist. And then he went to the steel guitar, which is, you know,
yeah, it's a table in here.
Yeah. But the group played at places like the Tail of the Cock and some shops and places, drinking places, you know, that were very popular. And then during the war, my sister Joan started to sing, and she had quite a good voice. So he took her on the road with him.
Wow.
And they went to some of the camps.
Okay. For the injured?
Probably, or the servicemen. So he did kind of a tour. This was during the war, and to a degree. I cannot tell you everything because Joan is 7 years younger than I.
Oh, wow.
And so she sang with the band, and she lives in Sacramento, and I don't see her very often.
Oh.
And the other sister I was 19 when she was born. So she's a little one.
Yeah.
In Washington State.
Oh.
When Mother died, she told me to take care of the girls. Well, I'm doing the best I can, but they're not very friendly about it.
Absolutely.
I think I probably have been, what do you want to say about a person that's kind of different and wants to
Unique?
break the rules?
Oh, okay. Rebellious?
I'm kind of rebellious.
Kind of rebellious.
I try not to be, but it comes out. You know
You are who you are.
Yes, yeah.
Of course.
And I think that probably I have, I love them dearly, but I think at some point I've been the older sister, and maybe I was favored to a degree.
Yeah.
It's possible in a family for 7 years, you know. And Joan had asthma, and she was quite sick for a while, and the baby came, Mother had a change of life child.
Yeah.
So I could have been the mother, you see. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. So your dad was on the road a lot, and he started taking your sister. Was that difficult dealing with?
No, I think Joan had a wonderful time learning with all the musicians and all the things that they did. And musicians are kind of artists, and they are kind of wild, and they have their problems. They had, I hate to say this, but they do have were into drugs and things, you know. It's part of their lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you grow up with this, you know this. And I learned a long time ago, when I was even a little girl, my dad would take me aside and say, this is the way it's going to be, Gloria. Men are going to be a problem for you. You have to understand, men are different than women, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I've always had some wonderful men in my life, so I never thought that way. But I have a wonderful son. My husband and I got along quite well. He was in the Navy at 17.
Oh, wow.
And when we married in 50, we had 50 years, as I say. We had the 2 children. Our daughter, whom we do not see and haven't. I can't understand her problems, but maybe that'll come in life, in time.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about your husband. How old were you when you met him?
I was 23.
23?
He was 25.
Wow. How did you guys meet?
At the townhouse. There's a townhouse in Los Angeles. I worked at Bullock's Wilshire. Not the Bullock's, not the Western, not Bullock's downtown. This was the unique store.
Los Angeles, or?
Yes, on Wilshire Boulevard, and near Vermont, and Magnon's was there. And I started as a stock girl, then I went on up to collegian because of my age. I was just out of high school. In 45 I graduated. This is probably 47, 48. And I had to do some working because my parents didn't have an awfully lot of money, and I loved working and I liked people, so it was natural for me. And I think they found that I got to help dress the models. Yeah. So I learned an awfully lot about fashion, clothing, dressing, taking care of your body, and all these things from the girls, and it was fun. And I somehow, who was it? Oh, there was a wedding, a friend of ours, and George Hope, his father, my girlfriend Jane Walsh was marrying to Bob. This was not the Hope family though, but she was marrying, and George and I were in the wedding group, you know what I mean. And he said one time to me, he said, "Gloria, I'm not getting anywhere with you. I don't think we like each other too well, but we're together. But I have a guy that I know from Claremont Men's College where he was going to school, and he said he's out of the Navy and he lives in this area, but he's at Claremont Men's College now and he comes on the weekend. I'd like you to meet him." So I said, well, you know, that's fine. And so we met one night and we went to the townhouse, and George took us, picked him up, took me with him, and then George left for the evening and left us there. So we sat and maybe had a couple of drinks together, and we talked for hours.
Wow. What were some of the conversations that you guys had?
I don't remember, dear. Okay, yeah. He wanted to know who I was and why, what I was doing with my life. He'd been out of the Navy, but he was in 4 years during the war. He'd been around the world twice. And I was ready and he was ready. It's all I can tell you. You know at that point in time. And I think within a few days, I came home, I remember that, and my mother was waiting for me because she always got nervous about me staying out with boys, you know, and my dad was always working. So, and I said, "Mom, I met a very nice guy tonight," and I said, "I really like him a lot, and I think maybe I'll see him again." And within minutes, the phone rang. And he said, "I want to see you next Saturday. I'll be back. I go back to school, and I'll be back next Saturday. I want to take you out on Saturday." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful, thank you." And that was the end of that. Well, then the second time around was better, and the third time around was better, and probably within a month and a half, he asked me to marry him.
Wow, that's amazing. What was the wedding like?
Well, we had a very small wedding because, as I say, my family did not have any money to speak, and no fancy. So we were married at a Lutheran church. My grandfather on my dad's side was a Lutheran minister. So he was not allowed around, but my grandmother had married another Lutheran minister. And it was the Bethel Lutheran Church on Olympic in Los Angeles, near where we lived on Stanley, which is between Wilshire and, you know where Miracle Mile is? Well, in that area.
Oh, okay, nice.
And we were married at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on November the 4th, 1950.
Wow.
And We did not have a reception. His parents were very gracious to us because Dad Holler, I just adored him. He said, you need a new car for your wedding. So he got us a new car with Oldsmobile. And he said, because the wars are coming up, there, you know, things were really popping up all the time.
Yeah, when the war came, I'm sure prices went and drove up.
And you couldn't possibly have gone. So we took the car and left. We came back to my mother's, our home on Stanley Avenue. We changed clothes and off we went. And we went to Fresno the first night, and then we went up the coast, I mean inland. Reason being that he had gone to Davis, and after the Navy he'd gone to, he worked in Davis, I guess, and went to school for a while, and he didn't like that. So he came back to Southern California because he wanted to go to Claremont Men's College and get his rest of his education. So we just got along well, and we had a very good marriage, I think. We had a little apartment over in the valley, and our honeymoon, finally, we went to Mexico City.
Oh, wow.
He had been down there, and I wanted to see that part. I wanted to see Tosco. Tosco is a beautiful little village. It's just exquisite.
Nice, I'll have to
and I've always wanted to see it, so I got to see it. And they make their jewelry there in this little, and it is with a fountain like here and little houses around, and it's a very little village at that time. This was in the, you know, very. And so we did this, and this was about a year after our marriage, and because we had saved our money for that trip, we wanted to do something nice for our. We didn't have a real honeymoon, as I say. We went out for a while, but I think we went to Fresno and a couple of places and came back, and just a few nights away, and then
this is something that you both wanted to do and wanted to do together.
And I was still working in those days. So we just hoped for the best. I got one of each, and I quit while I was ahead.
Absolutely. 2 is enough, huh?
Well, she came, and then 4 years later, Bruce came, and Bruce has been a godsend to me. He has been the most wonderful son in the world. I had no idea the depth of him until this happened to me, and again, Kurt's problem, and he's had a second marriage, and it's very happy for him now. He has 3 wonderful children. They're your age. They live, Luke is in La Jolla, Samantha's in San Francisco with a great job, and Travis is moving to Dallas near his father, because my Bruce lives in Texas now.
Oh, wow.
Reason it being, I lived in Nevada for.
What's Bruce's last name?
Holler.
Holler. Okay, yeah, same as you.
Bruce Curtis Holler. My husband was Wesley Curtis Holler Jr., but he went by Kurt.
Okay.
And I wanted to save the Curtis because I didn't want Wesley, so we did the Bruce Curtis Holler. Okay. So he wasn't a turd or a third or.
Absolutely.
You know how that goes.
Absolutely.
And he has a son, Travis, another Travis, and then he has Virginia. He married Virginia. She's a second. They knew each other in high school. They were both married to somebody else, and then they got married several years ago. And they have a good marriage, I think. And he has a daughter, Samantha, as I said, and she's San Francisco. She has a very good job. But I think she's getting close to getting attached to a gentleman from La Jolla, who's a friend of a friend. You know how that goes. And then the other grandson is Luke, and he's in La Jolla. And he's the one that has this friend that his sister got involved with. So maybe something's going to happen in there. In that group.
That's interesting.
Because Bruce is saying, he says, you know, I don't care what happens, but he says, you're getting older and I am too, and I'd like to have some grandchildren.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm 91, you know.
91. Mm-hmm. You're doing great. You look great for 91.
Thank you.
I hope I'm still going at it.
Well, it isn't that. It's your genes, but it's also the way you eat and take care of yourself. I have always been exercising. I played tennis for years. I have always been a go get it. You know, I've never been able to sit very long.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I do 49 things at once. I've always been that way, and it's very hard on my body, I guess.
Absolutely. And your mind. And your mind.
And it's just the way you get, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love being busy. I loved
That's
working for that reason. And I just enjoyed all of it because everything was new and exciting, and you meet new people, and everybody has a story, and I don't know what it is about
everyone
me.
has a very beautiful, unique story. What else did you do for work going in through your life?
What?
What else did you do for work in your life?
Work? Mostly ready to wear.
Oh yeah, just in the fashion
And
industry.
And I have helped out ladies that had their shops, and they knew that I would be good there, you know. So I did that for a while. I didn't always have any kind of other job. I think that was kind of what I liked. I love art. I love creating things. We have a very good gal here. She's been gone for a few weeks. She'll be back tomorrow. Who an art teacher.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's very important to be creative to a certain extent.
Absolutely, I agree.
We're not all creative in the same manner, though, you know. And I do think that art is very good for me.
Yeah.
I must have some talent somewhere.
Absolutely. What are some of your favorite hobbies?
I haven't always had a hobby. I've always exercised a lot.
Okay.
I've always had children or grandchildren, or Kurt and I did a lot of traveling together. He was a sales representative. He was kind of an engineer salesman. And Bruce is an engineer also. And Kurt and I did an awfully lot of short trips. He would call me. He'd be on the road all week, and he'd call me Friday and say, we're going somewhere this weekend. I said, I just loved it, because I just love to go places.
Yeah, being spontaneous.
We went to San Diego. We lived in Palos Verdes here for 35 years. I sold property there for a while, at least for 25 years. But I knew all the people, you know, it was just not hard for me. And it was a lovely spot to be in the 60s and 70s. Now it's gotten overly crowded, and the trees are bigger, and it's still very lovely, but it's just it wasn't the way what we were. We were in a city, but kind of out of the city, you know. It was wonderful,
rural area.
And we had a track house, and we paid $32,500 for it, and we sold it for a whole lot more.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. $32,500 for a track house. And we were there 30 years, and we made a fortune. And you know what he said to me? I wanted to kick him. He said, why in the hell didn't we buy more? I said, Kurt, I begged you. We had he had a GI Bill. I could get those GI Bills. They were wonderful for people. I said, you must realize, Bruce, that I don't want to be in debt. My parents got in debt with this, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you're not helping me any. I said, I sold property to a couple of friends of ours, and they thought I did a pretty good job. So it wasn't hard for me. I knew the property. I lived in the area. I knew what to tell them. I think when you buy something from somebody, particularly in real estate, you have to know where the schools are, where the churches are, where this is, where that is. There are groups of people. football and baseball. I've always been a team mother for a lot of years in football. Because all my boys in my life, I call them my boys, but I've known them since they were 10 and 12 years old. Now they're 60.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I still see them, you know, and I call them my boys.
Aww.
Because it was fun for all of us. The coach and I had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of problems. Sometimes parents just didn't realize we were not babysitters, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I and my children went to Rolling Hills High School, so and I was active in all of those things, PTA, you name it. I was a member of the Assistance League for many years, volunteering. You name it, I've done it. I've had lots of hours of giving my time,
That's what it's all
which
about.
I like doing. And I think it's very beneficial to people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is, the most valuable currency on this planet is the effect that you have on others. You know?
Yes,
and
that's true.
That's where you're going to find your fulfillment. I've had opportunities to sit across the table with people worth $100 million, and they say, this is not where you're going to find your happiness, having all this money. He says, when you help people, when you inspire people, when you
And people that need you.
yeah, absolutely.
You can say one sentence to somebody and it makes a difference of them.
Or a smile or a hug passing by somebody, and people don't realize.
No, they don't realize.
A simple act of kindness can change the course of somebody's life.
Well, I have things. I'm a member of religious science, which is science of mind, and it's been around a long, long time. It's not Mary Baker Eddy, that one. This is something that is a philosophy that teaches you that everything is possible in life. Everything.
Everything is.
And there is nothing that you cannot do if you set your mind to.
Yeah. The problem is that people's minds are so closed off. You don't know what to reach for if you don't see it or know about it.
And I find that retirement is not good for me at all.
Yeah. Well, I feel just constantly learning every day. That is amazing.
I've met a lot of nice people, but we also have a lot of people that are, because I'm an ambassador here, and they're chosen because they need people like me who introduce them to what's going on here. It's kind of a routine that you've never had before.
Yeah.
You give up your home. And I gave up my home, and I said, look, your children are doing the best they can for you. They're working. They cannot stay home and take care of you now.
Yeah.
You might need something. You can't live alone.
Yeah.
So this is the best option for you at this time. Now, maybe you won't like it for a while, but you will meet other people just like you. And I said, if you just learn to cope with it and do something new each day if you can.
Yeah.
I said, to me, it isn't the end of the world. Of course not. I'd love to have my home and my puppy dog and my garden again.
Yeah.
But it ain't possible, kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to do what you have to do.
Do the best that you can, what you have at your
Yes,
disposal
exactly.
for options.
And they try very hard to help us here. We have 4 or 5 cars. They take them out on trips. They have all kinds of activities. They're really working hard to keep us busy. But if people do not do it and sit in their room and then complain, you know what I'm saying, Travis?
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink.
Exactly.
Exactly. Looking at marriage, I know you said you were married for 50 years. I don't see marriages last that long today. What do you think?
Very upset, but I never had to leave him. There was one time I left and visited some friends overnight because I was so mad at him. And he came and found me, and we were fine.
Yeah.
And these things happen in a marriage.
Absolutely.
It is a very hard relationship to work out. If you have a good one, it's marvelous. But you have to work at it constantly.
Yeah.
And I had to give in to a lot of things that I didn't really think I wanted to. but I did it for the sake of the marriage
Yeah.
and the children.
Absolutely. You think
see,
people are so caught up in...
they're so self-centered. You have to give of yourself, and it's hard sometimes.
You have to give to receive. That's amazing. You expect somebody else to change their
Dory
ways.
was born, as I say, about a year after we were married, a little longer. And then Bruce came 4 years later, and I got one of each. I quit while I was ahead, and I said that. And I mean it. I wanted to, and he did too. I don't think Bruce was as close to his dad as he would like to have been. But he adored my parents. My father and my mother were just adored him. My dad used to take fishing out on the, on the Pacific Ocean, right? And he still talks about it a lot. Yeah. They were wonderful people to him. They were wonderful people, period. But he had an opportunity to have a grandparent, both of them, give a lot of time for him.
Yeah.
And that is something I'm also very grateful for,
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure him not being close with his dad.
I don't know that it was not that. I don't know that Kurt was able. Same with his daughter. Maybe that's why she's mad at me and him. Yeah. She didn't even acknowledge his death.
That's terrible.
But she was on narcotics as a young woman. I found that out later. I did not know that. How do you not know these things? Tell me that.
Well, people are good at hiding things. How did you not know that your daughter was on narcotics?
Yes.
Well, you were very busy, I'm sure. And also if she didn't want you to know, she hid it from you,
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be difficult to deal with.
It's just, I feel very guilty about it now.
Well,
but I know that I did the best I could. And I'm hoping that maybe one day she'll come around. My son said the same, but he said, Mom, I don't want you to pursue it because it's just going to hurt you worse.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't.
And he knows that I'm getting older and I'm taking things differently. This thing with my accounts, I cried my eyes out over it. Yeah. It's only money, I know that, but still, it was a terrible. It's like you've been.
You only have control over so many things you want to.
Yes, well, I don't want that to happen. I don't have any checks to write now. I don't have any money. I've got money in the bank, but we had to change all the numbers and all that. I have to go see him after you. He's with Wells Fargo, and he said, Gloria, don't worry, everything. They always say that, I say, well, you don't have the problem, I do.
It'll all work out. I won't keep you too long. What are some of let's jump into present day. What are some of waking up in the morning? What are some of your biggest motivations?
Well, I look to see, I always write down what's going on the next day so that I know I'm prepared for it. Usually it's exercise every other morning, a class that we have, get breakfast. I always say my things from my church things. I thank God for everything I have. I'm very grateful to him for being so generous with me. I'm very blessed in many ways. I think you have to be very able to be grateful.
Gratitude.
And you must let people feel that gratitude. It's important. We're only on this earth for a short time, and my end is coming up, honey, whether I like it or not. And quite frankly, I've outlived everybody. Mother died in her 80s, my grandmother died in her 80s, my dad died at, he was only 80. But he was a smoker all his life, and
Yeah.
I smoked for a while, but I gave it up. It was the thing to do,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
I don't know. I miss my parents a lot,
Yeah.
but I filled that void with Bruce. Although he's in Texas now, I wish he was still closer. He was here. That's why I moved back here, see.
Oh yeah. And then he moved back to Texas.
What motivates me every day is to get up, get dressed, and look halfway decent.
Well, you look beautiful.
But thank you. But I do make an effort.
You do.
I think it's important for my safety. I look in the mirror and I say, Gloria, this is another day. Hang in there, you know. What's going to happen, we don't know.
Yeah.
You have to do that to yourself.
Absolutely.
Mirror work works very well.
Does it?
I think the models taught me an awfully lot. I really do.
Yeah.
And I was a young woman still. I was still in, you know, I was, what, 18, 19 through there. I got married at 23, so it was, those years were very impressionable for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at me being 25, what would be some advice that you would give to me?
Well, you have a goal. Goals are very important. You know what you want to do, and follow and write down things as it comes to your mind.
Yeah.
Have pencil and paper by the bed. You'll wake up in the middle of the night, write it down. These are things that God is giving you the opportunity to develop your mind and your body, and your whole life is ahead of you. Take care of yourself. I mean physically, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care if it's at the door over there. But believe in something other than yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back a lot. Say, you know, you look pretty damn good. You know what I'm trying to say to you? These are things that we don't do to ourselves. Mirror work is very important, I think. You don't look at just the lipsticking on or the makeup. You're not looking at that. You're looking into your own eyes and saying, I need to do this today, or this problem has got to be. I have a woman that wasn't very nice to me recently, and I'm trying to get it out of my mind because obviously she's not well, or she has a problem. You don't go around telling people that you are you know? So those are the things you have to learn to do, and that's what I suggest for you. You have a goal. That goal is very important. You will do very well because of your personality. You have got to like people. Like them or lump them, even if they're not wonderful people, but there's something in everybody that you will gain from.
Absolutely, I very much agree with that.
Yes, everybody gives you something. It's a gift. Take it and enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for the bad, I feel, you know, you said that lady made a bad remark towards you, and I think looking at it at the perception of, if I was raised the way she was raised, if I went through what she went through, or if I had the day that she went through, maybe you'd understand it a little bit.
Yeah, but not here.
No.
We have a nice group of people who are, they obviously have to have money to be here, number one. Number two, it's a quality of life people. And we've noticed, I have, because I've been here since it opened, some of the people that I know that we've been here only about 50 of us.
Yeah.
We see a different quality coming in. This was not long. This is not language that we should speak to one another.
Yeah. Oh, I very much agree with that. One last question. What would be one thing, if you could do one thing in this world as a bucket list? What would be one thing that you'd really want to do?
I do. I'm working on it right now. I want to go to South America.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Where to in South?
I want to do the cruise, and I've got people at the church working on it.
That's
We're
amazing.
trying to. I don't want to go for too long. I don't think I can handle that. I'd like to have a partner. I'm looking for a partner because I need a partner.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I have to buy a whole stateroom. And it will be from like Chile all the way around the Horn and get off maybe the other side. I don't know. I'd like to do, I've done Europe, I've done the Caribbean, I have done Alaska, I've done Hawaii many times. I went to our daughter-in-law, Bruce's first wife, came from Australia. We've been down there. So I've done an awfully lot of traveling, which I enjoy totally, very much.
Traveling's the most amazing.
But now that I'm older, I need somebody along. I need, if you pray for me to get a partner, because you need somebody to help you. I know that sounds weird, but you don't know at your age now what's going to happen. And you really shouldn't go on your own on something like that.
No, absolutely. I would imagine. Well, if
I
you
would
need somebody to go with you, I would go with you.
You will have to think, you have to have, it's a shipboard. I would pick up the ship and then go around the Horn, as they say, and come out on the other side. It probably would last 3 or 4 weeks, which is more than I wanted to do, and we're talking $30,000, $15,000 to $30,000. And think might be right. They've done it all, and they don't want to do it again or spend the money.
Yeah, that's true.
I figure that, you know, I'm not going to be here forever. I better do it now. I hope I can still do it, quite frankly.
Well, you can. I believe you can do anything.
But it's trying to find the right person and the right circumstance. And they're working with me, these people, a husband and wife that in church. And they are in Corona Del Mar. And I talked to her yesterday. I said, let's have lunch next week. I want to go over this again. I have one proposition done, but I don't think they'd let me get on it and off it. You have to get on and stay on the ship and stop at all these ports. And my hope was that I could go in, fly in for a while, stay with them, then fly out and see. And they don't want to do that. The ships don't want to do that. And I understand they set these things up, you know. But there are other ship lines that we might have, so she's looking for me. And she said if worse comes to worse, maybe she and her husband might go too. But I want in my stateroom, because you have to buy a whole stateroom, see?
Oh, wow.
You cannot buy half a stateroom unless you have a partner.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They are for 2 people. There are no singles.
Oh, no.
Nuh-uh.
So you have to...
Not on these smaller ships.
You have to pay for 2 seats.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
that could be... Well, I hope the best. I know it will come true.
If it's supposed to happen, it will. I have that attitude about it.
Absolutely. I want to see every country in the world by the time.
Well, I have seen most everything in the United States.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We lived in New York for a year. I saw International Exposition in San Francisco.
Oh, yes.
And
Let's
New
jump
York.
into the Golden Gate Bridge. I thought that was so phenomenal.
I saw both bridges being built and walked across it.
Wow.
President Roosevelt came in an open car. In those days, they had men around him, you know, because we didn't know he was crippled at that point in time, but people didn't know that.
He
but
had his disease.
He had something on his arm. And he stopped, and we were probably in kindergarten, first, second, I don't know, it was 30-something. And I can remember probably 37, but maybe I think that's longer. And that would make me 10, and maybe it was, but we followed the car, and we had parents take us just so far, and then we all crossed the bridge following the car.
Wow.
It's only a mile, the Golden Gate.
Yeah.
The other one, of course, is longer.
That was on the grand opening day, or?
Well, the day that it opened, he was there to open, and it was President Roosevelt.
Wow.
And it was very interesting to me to look back, because I was in the Marina District right by the Presidio, and we saw it being built, you know, and this was unreal. They went way down to the base. If people don't realize what a very fabulous thing they did to get this bridge built.
Yeah.
The winds come in there like you cannot believe the opening that they were at. You have to live in San Francisco to see the weather the way it is, you know. And it was magnificent. Up to that point, we took these little ferry boats back and forth.
Oh, okay.
And they still have them for people. And they had the best time in the world. A lot of people, the younger, not young like me, but older people would have a drink coming after they worked and have a kind of a party because it was slow, you know, from the ferry place on this side to, let's see, Alameda or something across this Oakland or wherever they were going.
Yeah.
And they'd leave their car on the other side, and it was a lot of fun. They had orchestras on. They had all kinds of partying going. You could take your car, you know, on some of the ferry boats. Yeah. And they have those still in Seattle. I know that because I've been there a lot.
Kind of like Balboa. They have the little thing that goes back and forth. That's amazing. Do you remember, because Alcatraz is right there, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember when they tried to escape and all that happened? I don't know what year that was.
Well, they've tried, everybody's always tried, honey. But the sharks will get you or something, you know, you cannot absolutely swim that day. The water is so bad.
Yeah.
We could never go to the beach in San Francisco.
No, it's got a lot of sharks.
Well, they said there was. I don't know. I imagine they would be.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some animals maybe out there, you know.
Why was the beaches bad? Just cold? It was never.
You don't have weather like here, you know. It's foggy most of the time. And yeah, my dad would take me down to the beach. I remember he took me one time horseback riding at the beach.
Yeah.
We rented some horses and Fleischman Zoo. There's all kinds of things that happened in my day. That were just fabulous. My dad played the International Exposition in Treasure Island, and we had a gal named Sally Rand. She was a nudist.
Oh, really?
And he knew all these people, you know. I got to know all those people. It was interesting.
That's phenomenal.
And they would come to the house, and he taught me how to mix drinks and everything.
Oh, that's fun.
Well, he said, if you're going to be in this world, you have to know these things. So I was the boy that they always wanted, evidently, and they didn't guess, so I got to be the boy. I painted houses with him.
Oh, yeah?
And one time we were doing it the day that the war stopped. We had to leave the ladders and get down and celebrate, and we couldn't get everybody closed. We just had a wonderful time.
Yeah. Oh.
So I can tell you that my father had me, I was lading brick. I can remember laying brick in my patio. I said, I've learned to do an awfully lot, and having been in real estate, I have been able to get contractors to listen to me. And if you don't have a good contractor, you can lose the deal.
Yeah.
So I have somebody I can always call and say, you fix this now, I pay for it, then we'll have a deal.
Oh, well, that's good.
And they all knew me pretty well because they knew that I was real.
Yeah.
And it worked.
That's awesome.
Because contractors can be very, very helpful. You know, if you buy a house and there's something wrong, but they still like the house, you get a good contractor, you've got a deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So that's important.
That's a good little team you had.
Yeah. People don't realize, and you have to work the deal in the area that you know. You don't sell over there if you're living here, because you know what's happening in here, but not over there. People get very carried away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know.
Gloria, I thank you so much for your time. It really means so much to me. Thank you. You mind if I just get a little picture with you?
Yes, I guess, sweetie. But I think that I just blah, blah, blah too much.
No, I loved it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you and your time.
You need yourself a very nice lady.
Yeah,
You
I'm searching.
really do.
I'm searching.
You don't have to search, she'll come into your life. You just have to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Absolutely. We can do one right here and smile.
Hello?